Hey guys, I've been away for a while and I've come up with a really creepy story. Get comfortable and let's go. I thought about it for a long time and finally decided to fulfill my long-time dream of getting a brightly colored tattoo on my wrist. I decided that it would be a fire phoenix in yellow and orange shades. Saved on this, but the quality was for me principal. Most of all, I liked the work of a tattoo artist named Nastya Dashayeva. She was expensive, but she was a real artist. I spent an hour looking at her page and admiring each work. Finally, the day came and I went to her salon. Nastya was a pretty girl. Blonde with big green eyes. She was about 25 years old, but her face seemed childish, rounded, like a doll. I didn't notice any tattoos herself. Maybe that was her thing. A tattoo artist without tattoos. Or maybe she couldn't find a master equal to herself. The girl disinfected the couch with me and opened the needles. It was a little scary. It was my first time after all, and my skin was thick. She sat me down, applied contours, and started the machine. At first it seemed painful, but in the process, the girl kept touching my palm with her breasts. It just didn't work any other way. Against my will, I studied her entire shape and firmness. We both pretended that nothing was happening. It was very awkward, but comforting. "Why Phoenix?" the girl asked. "Does it mean something to you?" "Well, in case I die and he helps me resurrect," I joked, because I didn't want to admit that it was just a random drawing. I chose it for its beauty, not because it means something. My answer made the girl flinch, and she somehow immediately darkened, as if she'd heard something unpleasant. I wanted to fix it. "I actually just loved Harry Potter when I was a kid," I interrupted. "No, people," she corrected. "That's how it is," I smiled. And for some reason, the dark thoughts of death came into my head again, and I blurted out, "Now I'm going to have this phoenix for the rest of my life. Probably the morgue workers will find something to joke about it. Let's put it in the oven in case it revives from the ashes." And then Nastya said, "By the way, I'm also a thanatopractic." "What is that?" I didn't understand. "A person who does post-mortem makeup. I haven't practiced embalming the dead for a long time," the girl explained. "Are you serious?" I was surprised. "It's not scary to work with corpses?" Before it was not scary. It seemed that the dead will not throw any surprises, they do not complain about anything, lie quietly. But I had one very unpleasant case. After that, working with living people became somehow preferable. "Do you want to tell me about it?" I asked because I was intrigued. Disappointed in the profession of makeup artist for the dead? I guess when a person agrees to it, he knows in advance what he's doing. I imagined the surprises that could arise in such a job. The vile odor, the nasty cavity discharges, the post-mortem intestinal gases. All of it, of course, disgusting. I tell you, but would you believe such a thing? "No one does," she said, and that intrigued me even more. "Come on, tell me," I insisted. She didn't look me in the eye, only at my hand. "It's not nice to bring it up. You brought up the resurrection and I shuddered. I still work at the funeral home, but I haven't taken orders in a while. Anyway, it was like this. They brought in the body of an old woman and asked me to prepare it for a funeral. She had been dead for 5 days and was beginning to decompose." "Wait," I interrupted. "They pay more for that than for tattoos, don't they?" "Yeah," she nodded. "Usually I had someone helping me, or at least present in the building. But that night, it was like everything was stacked against me. I came to the bureau and the chief was about to leave and said, 'Anastasia, you arrived a little late.' You'll have to be on duty until night. I said, I'm not used to it. He said, what? Well, I'll go and you stay to close up. I said, yes, close it. And I went to see how complicated it was. In the sanitary room, there was a thick smell of formalin. The body had been given a good bath so that it didn't stink of decomposition. I went to the table, took off the sheet, and realized that the work was not just a simple face painting. An old woman's skin yellowed and covered in purple-green spots, gray hair tangled in tangled strands, eyes ajar, the tip of a black tongue sticking out of her mouth. It was like she was teasing me to mess around. What's your name? I asked. Raisa Nikolaevna? I'm Nastya, your makeup artist. Nice to meet you. I had this habit of talking to the dead. I asked her, Raisa Nikolaevna, do you mind if I play some music? Of course she didn't mind. Thank you very much. I put on my favorite dark mint. I liked working with the dead to the dark, atmospheric melody. I immediately felt like a heroine of some sad movie. Then, as usual, I got down to business. Mask, gloves, first of all. I additionally treated the signs of decomposition, injected a subcutaneous embalming compound into the problem areas. This is done to slow down the decomposition process and give the tissues elasticity. Then it was necessary to close her mouth. There are different ways to do this. You can inject a fixative into the muscles that hardens and holds the jaw in position. You can run a wire through the bones of the jaw, or you can sew the mouth shut with nylon thread. My grandmother was a little toothless, so I put a special denture and a subplate in her mouth, with fillers and plasticizer to restore volume to her cheekbones and cheekbones. It's kind of like a sculptor's work. I looked at a picture of a woman, and with a small spatula, I precisely molded her new face. The hair was also a problem. Decomposition had caused it to fall out in wisps. While I brushed the dead woman, luckily I always had some false strands. For such occasions, I fixed my hair with hairspray. The hairstyle turned out luxurious. Raisa Nikolaevna, don't make you too beautiful, or it will be a pity to bury you, I said to her. It was already 10 p.m. My mouth was dry and I was so enthusiastic. Another problem, the nails on my hands started to peel off. I cleaned them and glued them back on with medical glue. I glued the eyelids back on too. That's what you do with dead people, not just dress them up and put them in a coffin. Yeah, I like to talk about the process. Isn't that interesting? I suggested it. The next step is the post-mortem makeup. I picked up a shade close to the natural skin color of the old woman, applied a thin layer of foundation, then masked with corrector, then began the makeup. Emphasized the eyebrows, gave a slight blush to the cheeks, tinted the lips. Raisa Nikolaevna, let's get dressed. I pulled on her underwear. Yes, the dead also need underpants. Relatives sometimes check their presence. Then the dress, shoes, all beauty. Now the old lady looked like she'd just fallen asleep. She smelled bad, of course, but she looked great. Her face was calm and peaceful. You should see yourself, Raisa Nikolaevna, I said. And then she opened her cloudy eyes, molded glued eyelids, and stared at me. I involuntarily swore. It happens. So badly glued. I said to her, it's good you did it now and not at the funeral. Someone reaches up to kiss you on the forehead, and bang, your eyes open. I put special plastic inserts with tiny spikes under her eyelids so her eyes wouldn't open again. And then I glued them back on. It turned out great. I can't help but admire my work. It's time to have a cup of green tea and go home. I put everything away, took off my gloves, rubbed alcohol on my hands, and went to the bathroom to sit and think for a minute. The funeral home was quiet, with only a light melody coming from the sanitation room. I went into the toilet, closed, purely out of habit. I looked at myself in the mirror, and suddenly I heard a creaking sound, as if an iron table had been banged, and then a quiet, shuffling footstep. Someone was walking down the corridor to the toilet. I just froze and waited to see what would happen. Suddenly, there was a bang on the door. It was like someone's forehead smashed in. I was so shocked. Who could it be? There was no one else in the bureau. The supervisor had promised to lock me up. Maybe he forgot. The shuffling man burst to the door and left. Then something squeaked again from the toilet. The phone with the music was left in the sanitary room. I had to pluck up courage and look out into the corridor. It was empty. The light from one of the lamps was shaking slightly. From the open sanitary room came a somber, almost funeral-like tune. I shouted, "Someone's in here." I left the restroom door open to run back and close in case of anything, and myself with quick steps went forward, looked in the orderly. The dead woman is in place. I already had time to imagine some stupidity, even became ashamed of myself. I went to the front door, closed. I quickly checked the back door, also locked. The only other options were that someone could have climbed in through the window or lurked here a few hours earlier. I didn't go through all the rooms to find whoever had gotten into the bureau. Whoever he was, I didn't want to meet him. The stress didn't keep me from thinking with my head. It was worth it to just grab the phone, go outside, and call private security. I ran into the orderly room, reached for the phone, then glanced at the deceased and was stunned. Her lips had been sloppily painted bright red lipstick. Her hands were clasped in a case. Her eyelids were flared again, and plastic inserts were lying at the floor. I looked around the sanitation room. No one would hide there. That was unequivocal. Someone had taken refuge in the other room. Without wasting precious seconds, I quickly closed myself in the orderly room. The door there is plastic but secure. I shook myself and said to myself, "Don't panic, Raisa Nikolaevna. We'll catch and punish whoever did this." I couldn't even imagine how the brain of a person who thought of breaking into a funeral home, opening the eyes of a dead woman, and painting her lips with red lipstick works. He certainly couldn't be healthy. I watched the door carefully while I called the private number of an acquaintance from the security service. He answered quickly. "Nastya, is something wrong?" "Yes," I say. "Leonya, someone broke into the funeral home and is hiding here." "Who broke in?" he asked. "I don't know who. I'm here, old lady makeup, went to the bathroom for a minute, and there are footsteps. I came back and the woman was painted without me. Everything's closed. I'm in the sanitary room with a corpse. Please come here." "Got it. I'm on my way. 8 minutes." And I was relieved. I felt like I had the power on my side. I wanted to see what would happen when in the funeral home with a gun behind the door in the hallway. The building was quiet, no rustling. I could only hear the refrigerators and lamps humming. I stared at the doorknob, as if I expected it to twitch, while I spoke to the dead woman again. "Everything will be all right, Raisa Nikolaevna. Now our friend will come and check everything, and I will put you in order." Suddenly, there was a clang of iron with a nasty creaking sound behind me. I slowly turned my head, and the dead woman was sitting on the table with her legs stretched out and leaning on her hands. I thought I knew everything about dead people, and it just couldn't be. The old woman had been dead for days. The morgue had removed all her internal organs. No miraculous resurrection was out of the question, but it was obvious that it was the dead woman herself who had started down the hallway and put on her own lipstick. Now I had voluntarily locked myself in the sanitation room with her. Dumbest thing you could think of. But how was I supposed to know dead people could do that? I stood there gaping as the old woman turned her head toward me, her blurred pupils moving slightly and her soiled lips moving slightly, as if she were trying to open her sewn-up mouth. I was losing my hair, barely breathing, just couldn't believe it was possible. And the old woman was no longer pretending. She took first one foot off the table, then the other, carefully descended from the table and remembered to adjust her funeral dress. She pulls her lipstick to her lips again, draws herself a smile from ear to ear, then drops the case and comes at me with a smeared face. I pull the lock the wrong way. I'm shaking, and I ask her, "Raisa Nikolaevna, stop. Lie back down. You have a funeral tomorrow. You need to be buried. I'm carrying you." The dead woman shuffles toward me, stretches her arms, crooked her fingers, and it seems as if she were only a dry old woman with not half her lifetime weight left in her. But how frightening it was. I trembled at the thought that she was about to touch me. Suddenly there was a saving clang of the key in the keyhole. Lyonya came to rescue me. Granny is already a few meters away from me. I shout, "Hurry, open up!" The doors flew open, the guy rushed inside, looks at me and the grandmother, and does not realize what's wrong. I yelled at him, "Lyonya, let's get out of here." He does not understand anything, thinks that I was scared by some skinny old woman, apparently. Well, I painted her alive. The guy is standing there, eyes flapping. What happened here? I yelled, "She's yours, I made her up." The dress has shrunk, no foundation, the corpse stains remain as they are. Then Lyonya saw them and believed me. He pulled out a gun and yelled to the grandmother, "Yahong, stay where you are!" And she went on, arms outstretched. I hid behind his back, pulling his shoulder. "Let's get out of here." And then he shoots. He said he was confused. It just happened by itself. "If it's a zombie," he said, "if it's a zombie, you should shoot it in the head, or it won't die." I'm yelling, "Don't you dare, I spent 4 hours painting it." But he's still with his gun, asking what to do with her then. The grandmother did not listen, as in the second time, knew how to show up to the sanitary room. I tied her up. In the morning we'll give her to the relatives. Let them sort it out themselves. On the one hand, I wanted to just run away and not think why the dead woman suddenly started walking. But on the other hand, then I would have to deal with it and be responsible for all this mess. The guard made a hole in her. How do you explain that to the relatives? I took the dead woman under my arms, Lyonya by her legs. He was writhing in disgust, saying to me with his head, "It will bite." But she became docile after the shot in the chest. We dragged her to the sanitary room, laid her on the table. I took the needle and thread. Lyonya didn't want to look at it. He turned green. He said, "Call me if you need anything," and went out into the corridor. And I firmly sewed the dead woman's hands, folding them on her chest so that the palms covered the bullet hole. Then I discreetly cut out the tendons in her legs so she couldn't walk. Put the inserts in place and sewed her eyelids back on. Put on some red lipstick, fixed her makeup. It was better than before. To move the old woman into the prepared coffin, she didn't call Lyonya, she did it herself. Then I went out into the corridor and told him that was it, you could go. Although I was scared to stay alone with the dead thing. The guard was hired to watch her to make sure she made noise and painted herself. "Do you often have dead bodies walking around here?" he asked. "I wish it were less often," I replied. "I always joke when I'm nervous." When Lyonya left, I would have gone home myself, but I couldn't. I sat next to the coffin with a mop stick, making sure that the dead woman didn't try to get up. When she twitched again, I almost shrieked, and then over a whole night I got used to it. The dead lady moved about once every couple hours, either bending her legs slightly at the knees or raising them. A full-fledged resurrection she could no longer be. It would have been better, of course, if she had been cremated instead of buried in the ground. So I sat there until morning, staring at the coffin, not daring to move. When the sun came up, the old woman quieted down and stopped squirming. At 9 a.m., the chief arrived, saw me trembling with a mop, and asked, "What's so early? Is there a problem?" "No, nothing. Everything is fine," I replied. I figured I'd tell him if he noticed anything strange. They wouldn't believe me. An hour later, my relatives arrived. A man and a woman, probably husband and wife. The woman looked like the deceased, tall, slender, long-necked, probably her daughter. And the man had the appearance of an intelligent rat, an elongated nose and 2 forward teeth, probably a son-in-law. I was nervous. I wish the old woman wouldn't twitch in front of them. The woman looks at the dead woman and asks, "Did you bury her?" I nodded. "Thank you very much. She looks good," she said. And the man whispers to her, "She doesn't seem to be moving anymore. I hope the witch is completely dead." The woman poked him in the side with her finger and hissed quietly, "You fool, who's pulling your tongue?" I could tell from those words that they knew everything. The dead woman was probably showing signs of life in front of them. They were obviously afraid that something unforeseen would happen. When the coffin was about to be loaded into the car, a woman asked the supervisor, "Can't you put the lid on right away? There would be no one at the funeral." The son-in-law also nodded. Yes, you can seal it right away." The supervisor said, "Yes, of course." When the coffin was nailed, my heart was relieved, and when the car went to the cemetery, I felt better. I didn't have to worry about anything else. All the time that Nastya told me, I was absorbed in her story and did not dare to interrupt, expecting some kind of denouement or explanation. But she simply changed the subject. The session was over. The girl began to explain how to take care of the drawing and when to come again.